It was an ordinary afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. The streets were busy with shoppers, tourists, and families enjoying the weekend. Chuck Norris, dressed in his signature casual style, a simple black t-shirt, jeans, and sunglasses, was walking calmly, enjoying the sunshine. He moved with a quiet confidence, the kind only someone who has faced every challenge life could throw at him could carry. At the same time, Officer Daniels, a young cop on patrol, was walking back to his vehicle. His eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and suspicious, as he looked for any sign of trouble. And then, almost instantly, they locked on Chuck. For reasons no one could explain, the officer assumed that this seemingly ordinary man might be a problem. Without warning, the officer approached, voice tense and sharp. "Hey, step aside. I need to check you out," he barked. Chuck paused, calmly turning to face him. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked, his voice steady, controlled. The officer's frustration only grew. "Don't get smart with me. I said step aside." And then, in a shocking moment, the cop threw a punch, fast, angry, and completely unnecessary. The crowd gasped. Phones were raised. Children clutched their parents, and the sound of shocked murmurs filled the air. Chuck didn't flinch, not even a twitch. He simply stepped back, hands raised slightly, his calm gaze locked on the cop. No one could believe what they were seeing. A man had just thrown a punch at Chuck Norris, and Chuck wasn't fighting back. Bystanders began whispering, trying to make sense of it. Who is he? Why isn't he hitting back? What's going on? The tension in the air was electric. Everyone instinctively knew this was not going to end like a normal street altercation. And then Chuck spoke, not with anger, not with aggression, but with calm authority. "You really shouldn't do that," he said softly, almost like a warning, yet with an intensity that made even the bravest onlooker shiver. What happens next will leave the entire crowd, and the cop, completely stunned, the crowd around them froze. Phones were raised as people started recording the scene, their whispers growing louder with each passing second. "Did you see that? He punched him. Why isn't Chuck Norris hitting back?" The murmur quickly turned into an audible buzz. Chuck remained calm, almost unnervingly so. His hands were open, relaxed, and at his sides. His voice, when he finally spoke, was measured, low, and commanding. "Officer, there's no need for this. Step back, and we can resolve this calmly." The cop, Officer Daniels, glared at him. His face was red, a mix of anger and disbelief. "Calm? You don't tell me how to act. You don't know who you're dealing with," he snapped. He squared his shoulders, chest puffed, trying to intimidate Chuck. People started gathering around. Tourists, local shoppers, even a couple of street performers had paused to watch. "Is this real?" someone whispered, holding their phone high. "Is that Chuck Norris?" Chuck didn't confirm. He didn't need to. The aura around him, the stillness, the calm, the undeniable authority, was enough to make people realize he wasn't an ordinary man. Yet, from the cop's perspective, he was just another citizen standing his ground. The tension grew as Officer Daniels began pacing slightly, muttering under his breath. He was trying to regain control, but every step Chuck took, backwards to maintain distance, made the officer more unsettled. The crowd felt it too. Every small movement was magnified that a voice from the crowd yelled, half laughing, half panicked. "Hey, everyone watching this online, where are you from? Comment your city or country." The idea spread quickly. Phones began live streaming. Viewers worldwide were now witnesses, connected to the unfolding drama in real time. "Why aren't you reacting?" a bystander whispered to a friend. "I thought he'd hit back immediately." Chuck's calm demeanor was his weapon. "Violence isn't always the answer," he said, almost teaching the crowd without raising his voice. "It's about control and understanding the consequences of your actions." Officer Daniels took a step forward, fists clenched. "You think you're better than me? You think you can just lecture me?" The officer's voice was louder now, attracting more onlookers. Children were hiding behind their parents, eyes wide. Chuck's wife and a couple of friends in the crowd tried to stay close to him, anxious yet trusting his judgment. The cop took another swing, not at Chuck this time, but at breaking his composure. "You're just a man. You don't scare me." Chuck tilted his head slightly, unfazed. Fear isn't my goal. Respect is. And you're forgetting one thing. His words were calm, but the weight behind them made people pause. A nervous hush fell over the crowd. Phones kept recording. Share this, someone whispered. The whole world needs to see this. By now, hundreds of viewers were already glued to the live stream online, sharing, commenting, and reacting to Chuck's calm response created a natural pause. If you were in this situation, what would you do? Type your answer in the comments below. The engagement was instant. Viewers debated, strategized, and empathized, mentally placing themselves into this tense scenario. The cops' frustration mounted. Every attempt to intimidate Chuck only highlighted his composure. The crowd began murmuring again. Who is he really? He doesn't just stand there like an ordinary man. Some bystanders tried to step in, telling the officer to calm down, but he waved them off. Chuck's presence alone was shifting the dynamics. He wasn't just resisting. He was subtly teaching everyone a lesson in patience, humility, and control. Each word he spoke, each measured step he took, made the officer's anger more visible, and the crowd more aware of the imbalance of power. The tension escalated further when Chuck finally looked directly at the cop, his gaze sharp, steady, and unyielding. It was a challenge, but not the kind meant to provoke violence. It was a challenge of awareness, understanding, and self-control. The cop's confidence began to waver. By now, everyone around could feel it. Something bigger was about to unfold. Phones recorded every second. Comments flooded the live stream. This is insane. Chuck Norris is too calm. What's he going to do? I can't believe the cop actually punched him first. Chuck's calm didn't just hold the moment. It created a mental trap. Viewers were already emotionally hooked. They wanted to see what happens next, whether Chuck would retaliate or continue to demonstrate control in the face of aggression. The cop thinks he's winning, but he has no idea what's coming next. What will Chuck do when the tension reaches its breaking point? The atmosphere around the scene was thick with tension. Onlookers had circled tighter, phones still raised, capturing every heartbeat of the encounter. Chuck Norris, as calm as a mountain in a storm, stood facing Officer Daniels. The punch had landed seconds ago, but Chuck hadn't flinched, hadn't retaliated. Instead, he exuded an almost magnetic control over the moment, his presence alone demanding attention. Officer Daniels' chest heaved as he tried to regain his composure. You think you could just stand there? You think I'm scared of you? He barked, stepping closer. His fist twitched nervously. The crowd sensed the officer's unease growing by the second. People whispered to one another, "He's not reacting. Why isn't he fighting back?" Chuck spoke, his voice calm, deliberate, and firm. Violence without purpose solves nothing. You need to step back and think about what you just did. The officer's face twisted in disbelief and anger. "Don't tell me what to do," he shouted, raising his hand as if to strike again. But Chuck didn't flinch, didn't even step back. His eyes locked on the officer, steady and unyielding, as if daring the aggression to continue. Chuck's wife, standing slightly behind him, whispered anxiously, "Honey, please just leave." But Chuck shook his head gently. "No, we did nothing wrong," he replied, his tone unwavering. He wasn't just defending himself. He was defending dignity, morality, and principle. Bystanders began to murmur among themselves, some stepping closer, others filming the confrontation. One teenager whispered to his friend, "This isn't normal. He's not fighting back." And the cop looked scared now. The tension escalated when Officer Daniels took another step forward. "You think your words can intimidate me? You're just a man." His voice was rising, trembling with a mix of rage and confusion. Chuck tilted his head slightly, his gaze never leaving the officer. "I'm a man," he said, "but being a man isn't about throwing punches blindly. Respect, control, and understanding, that's what true strength is." The crowd began to feel the gravity of the situation. Chuck's calmness wasn't just a defense, it was a psychological counterattack. Every second he remained poised made the officer more anxious, more reckless. Every onlooker felt it mentally. The balance of power was shifting. A young woman in the crowd shouted, "If this happened to you, what would you do?" Type your answer in the comments. Immediately, Viewers around the world began commenting, debating, and putting themselves in the scene mentally. Some sided with Chuck, others with the cop, but no one could deny the tension. Children hid behind their parents' legs, wide-eyed, while adults whispered to each other. "He's not just calm, he's commanding," one man said, shaking his head. Another whispered, "I've never seen anyone handle a punch like that before." Officer Daniels, frustrated by the growing crowd and mounting online attention, tried to regain control. Step aside before he stopped mid-sentence, noticing the growing whispers. "Who is he?" Chuck remained silent, his posture perfect, unshakable. The cop's aggression faltered, replaced by confusion. For the first time, he hesitated. The crowd sensed it. Every phone, every eye was on this moment. The tension was perfect for engagement. If you were witnessing this live, what would you do? Would you step in, stay back, or try to calm the situation? Comment below. This prompt traps viewers mentally, forcing them to imagine themselves in the scene, emotionally connecting them to the story. Chuck finally spoke again, his voice low but powerful. "You can choose to walk away, or you can let this moment define you. But know this, true authority doesn't come from fists. It comes from integrity." The officer's hand twitched. His anger had reached a tipping point, but the weight of Chuck's calm authority was pressing down on him like gravity. His chest heaved, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. Around them, bystanders leaned in, phones recording, hearts racing. Children were silent, sensing the gravity. Adults whispered, This is insane. He's just standing there, and the cop is freaking out." And then, a murmur began spreading through the crowd. "Wait, isn't that Chuck Norris?" The word was soft at first, then louder. The recognition spread like wildfire. Yet Chuck didn't flaunt it. He simply remained calm, his silence more powerful than any words could be. The crowd is starting to realize who they're dealing with, but the officer still has no idea. What happens when the full truth comes out? The tension in the street was almost tangible. Every person within sight had stopped whatever they were doing. Phones were raised like tiny torches, live streaming every second of the confrontation. Chuck Norris remained still, calm, and focused, while Officer Daniels fumed, fists clenched, pacing in small circles as if to regain control. A soft murmur began to ripple through the crowd. "Wait, that guy looks familiar," someone whispered. "Isn't that?" Their voice trailed off, replaced by an audible gasp. One bystander, a teenager with a smartphone, squinted at Chuck, then whispered urgently to his friend, I think that's Chuck Norris." The words spread quickly, bouncing from person to person. "Chuck Norris? No way, the legend?" Soon, the whispers grew louder, turning into murmured exclamations. A woman in a stroller's group leaned forward. "Oh my God, it really is him." Yet Officer Daniels remained oblivious. His attention was consumed by Chuck's composure, and he saw no one else in the crowd. He continued to shout, trying to assert dominance. "You think you're untouchable? Step aside before I take control." Chuck didn't move. He tilted his head slightly, letting the silence do most of the work. Each pause in his speech was heavy, loaded with authority. The crowd instinctively leaned in, waiting, watching, hanging on every breath. Phones zoomed in, capturing the close-ups of his calm face and steady eyes. "Why isn't he reacting?" someone whispered from the back of the crowd. "Why is he just standing there?" Chuck's subtle aura of control was overpowering. Every gesture, every word, every breath projected quiet power. He hadn't even thrown a punch, yet the officer's aggression began to falter. It was as if the air itself had shifted in Chuck's favor. Meanwhile, the whispers about his identity grew. People started stepping closer, pointing their phones, murmuring excitedly. "Holy, that's Chuck Norris. He's the real deal. The martial arts legend. The man who's faced every fight imaginable. The guy from movies and the news. It's him." The crowd began to murmur louder, but Chuck still didn't acknowledge it. He didn't boast. He didn't need to. The recognition alone amplified the tension. The cop, focused only on his own frustration, failed to notice the subtle shift in dynamics that a woman in the crowd shouted toward the live stream. If you realize you were witnessing Chuck Norris in person, what would you do? Comment below your reaction. The engagement exploded. Viewers worldwide typed comments instantly, some expressing awe, some disbelief, others imagining themselves in the chaotic scene. Officer Daniels tried to regain composure, muttering, "I don't care who he is, he's just another man." But his voice trembled slightly. His previous confidence was cracking under the psychological pressure of the crowd's whispers and Chuck's calm authority. Chuck finally spoke, but softly, almost like a teacher addressing a distracted classroom. "It's not about who I am. It's about what's right. Respect is earned, and intimidation is never the answer." The words carried weight. People around him nodded, their phones still recording. Children peeked from behind their parents' legs, sensing the gravity of the moment. Adults leaned in, stunned, some mouthing, "He's not even reacting. He's just teaching him a lesson." Another bystander whispered, "The cop doesn't even know who he's messing with yet. He has no idea." The realization added another layer of tension. The audience, both live and online, was now mentally engaged, imagining the impending reveal. The cop's fists twitched. His anger was visible, but uncertainty was creeping in. Every shout, every attempt at aggression was now undercut by the growing knowledge around him. The crowd's energy shifted. They weren't just spectators. They were witnesses to a legend, and they knew it. The live stream host shouted into the phone, "If you were in this crowd right now, would you confront the officer or let play out? Type your answer in the comments." This mentally trapped viewers, forcing them to imagine themselves in the chaos while emotionally connecting to Chuck's calm, controlled presence. Chuck's posture never wavered. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't flex his power. Yet the subtle shift was clear. The cop's authority was being undermined by Chuck's calm, the crowd's realization, and the sheer weight of reputation. The murmurs escalated further. "He's Chuck Norris. The cop has no idea. This is insane. He's just standing there," and the cop looks scared. And then a hush fell over the crowd. Everyone seemed to sense it simultaneously. Something monumental was about to happen. Chuck's identity was no longer a whisper. It was a silent power pressing down on the officer, setting the stage for the ultimate reveal. The cop thinks he's in control, but Chuck is about to flip the situation completely. What happens when a man of unmatched skill and calm authority finally speaks? The crowd held its breath. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every whisper, every step, every glance feel amplified. Chuck Norris, standing with calm authority, finally broke the silence. His voice was low, controlled, and sharp, cutting through the chatter like a blade. "Officer," he began, "you've made a mistake. Not because you're a bad person, but because you let your assumptions guide your actions instead of reason. You judged me without cause. You acted with aggression where none was needed." The words landed like punches, though Chuck didn't raise a hand. The cop's jaw tightened. What are you saying?" he stammered, trying to mask his growing unease. But the subtle power in Chuck's tone was undeniable. Each word was measured, deliberate, and commanding. The crowd was stunned into silence. Chuck continued, his eyes scanning the officer steadily. "Authority is not about fear. It's about responsibility. You carry a badge, yes, but that badge does not give you the right to intimidate, to humiliate, or to act on prejudice." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Phones captured every second. Live streams skyrocketed with new viewers commenting, "This is insane. He's teaching the cop a lesson." Chuck Norris isn't even raising a hand. Yet everyone is frozen. Officer Daniels' face turned red, his breathing heavy. He had expected compliance or fear from Chuck, not this calm, unwavering authority. I don't know what you're trying to," he began, but Chuck's next words cut him off. "Trying? I'm not trying anything. I'm simply giving you a chance to step back, to act with integrity, to recognize that strength is not measured by fists, but by control." The crowd shifted closer, sensing the moment was turning. Adults leaned in, whispering, "He's not even raising a hand," and the cop looks completely unbalanced. Children peeked from behind parents, wide-eyed at the spectacle of calm versus aggression. For the first time, Officer Daniels' aggression faltered. His fists twitched uncertainly. His usual confidence, the confidence of someone used to asserting power, was slipping. Chuck's presence, his calm demeanor, and his words had created a psychological trap. Every instinct to escalate was now countered by authority and restraint, the bystander shouted toward a phone recording the scene. If you were the cop right now, could you stand your ground, or would you step back? Comment below. Viewers worldwide were mentally transported to the confrontation, imagining themselves frozen in front of Chuck's unwavering gaze. Chuck paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. The silence in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. And then he added, almost like a teacher correcting a student, you can choose to rise above this moment, or let it define you as someone who abuses their authority. The choice is yours. The officer's hands twitched, and a bead of sweat rolled down his temple. His attempts at aggression had failed. Every shout, every swing, every step forward only reinforced Chuck's unshakable dominance, not through violence, but through sheer calm, measured authority. Phones continued recording, capturing the reactions of bystanders. Awe, disbelief, and growing admiration. He's not hitting back. And the cop looks terrified, someone whispered. Another said, this is incredible. Chuck Norris is controlling the moment without moving. The live-streaming host shouted, if you were in this crowd, would you intervene or stay back? Type your answer in the comments. Viewers were now fully mentally and emotionally trapped, imagining themselves part of the scene while witnessing Chuck's unmatched authority. Chuck's next words landed like a final strike, firm but calm. Respect is not demanded with threats. Power is not proven by fists. True strength comes from patience, control, and humility. Learn this lesson now, or it may cost you later. The cop froze. His hands unclenched slightly. His confidence had shattered. The whispers from the crowd intensified. He's teaching the cop a lesson without even touching him. He's a legend, not just for fights, but for this. And in that moment, the power dynamic had completely flipped. The cop no longer seemed in control. Chuck had assumed the authority of the situation, not with violence, but with presence, wisdom, and moral power. The truth is about to fully come out. The cop is about to realize he's not just dealing with a legend, but someone with authority equal to his own. What happens when the tables are completely turned? The tension on the street was electric. Every person present, onlookers, children, and adults alike, held their breath. Chuck Norris had spoken, and the psychological weight of his calm authority was pressing down on Officer Daniels. The cop, who had begun the confrontation with aggression and confidence, was now frozen, uncertainty etched across his face. Chuck's voice cut through the air again, soft yet sharp. Authority isn't measured by fear or aggression, officer. It's measured by how you wield responsibility, how you treat others, and how you maintain control over yourself. The cop's jaw tightened. For the first time, he realized something wasn't right. The crowd was whispering feverishly, nudging each other, pointing their phones, their voices rising in excitement. Wait, he's a cop too, someone finally exclaimed. The word spread like wildfire. He's a police officer? No way. That explains everything. He's not just some civilian. Officer Daniels' eyes widened as another uniformed officer, arriving just moments ago from the patrol car, stepped forward. Daniels, do you realize who this is? The newcomer asked quietly. That's Officer Chuck Norris. He's on duty too. The world seemed to slow for Officer Daniels. His confident posture crumbled, replaced by disbelief and embarrassment. He had thrown a punch at a man who not only could defend himself beyond imagination, but was also an equal in law enforcement authority. The tables had turned completely. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in applause and awe. People cheered, phones capturing every reaction. This is insane, someone shouted. The cop just got humbled. Chuck stepped forward calmly, his presence commanding yet non-threatening. He addressed Officer Daniels directly. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect, integrity, and accountability. You acted without reason, without understanding, and it almost cost you your credibility. Learn from this moment. Daniels swallowed hard, nodding silently. He understood, perhaps for the first time, the weight of his actions, the lesson Chuck had imparted without a single strike. Only through calm authority and moral power, a bystander raised their phone toward the live stream and shouted, "Have you ever underestimated someone in your life? Tell us your story in the comments." The viewers watching globally were now emotionally hooked, imagining their own moments of underestimation, reflecting on times they misjudged someone, and feeling the thrill of witnessing a legend's calm justice. The crowd's energy was electric. People were clapping, some cheering Chuck's restraint, others simply marveling at the psychological masterclass unfolding before their eyes. Even children who had hidden behind parents were peeking, sensing the enormity of what had just occurred. Chuck didn't gloat. He didn't revel in the humiliation of Officer Daniels. Instead, he exuded humility. The point of this isn't to punish, but to teach. Every officer, every citizen, every person who holds power must remember. Responsibility comes before reaction, integrity before aggression. The crowd nodded collectively. Phones continued recording, live streams exploding with shares and comments. Viewers online typed rapidly, "This is insane." Chuck Norris taught a lesson without hitting a single punch. The cop had no idea who he was messing with. Respect isn't demanded with fists. It's commanded with presence. Officer Daniels, now red-faced and humbled, lowered his gaze. Chuck extended a hand, not to strike but to reconcile. "Learn from this," he said quietly. "It's never too late to do the right thing." Daniels hesitated, then slowly shook Chuck's hand. The crowd erupted again in applause, not just for Chuck's restraint, but for the ultimate lesson. True strength lies in control, integrity, and respect. A bystander turned to the live stream camera. "If you had been in this situation, could you have handled it like Chuck?" Comment below. Viewers were mentally and emotionally trapped, imagining themselves in front of Chuck, facing authority, and realizing the weight of humility and restraint. Chuck's calm presence remained the center of the moment, commanding attention and respect. The police officer's initial aggression was now a lesson for everyone watching, live on the street and online. The video of this encounter is about to go viral. But what happens when the world sees Chuck's lesson in humility, authority, and respect? How will the cop respond? And how will the public react? By the time the sun began to set, the scene on the street had transformed from chaos into a spectacle of respect and awe. Phones were still recording, live streams continuing to spread across platforms worldwide. Viewers from every continent were glued to the screen, mesmerized by the encounter between Chuck Norris and Officer Daniels. The video went viral within hours. Millions had watched live or replayed it countless times. Clips circulated on social media, from short reaction videos to long compilations with commentary. Every share carried the same message. Respect, integrity, and calm can overpower aggression without violence. News outlets picked up the story. Headlines screamed across screens. Chuck Norris humbles aggressive officer without throwing a punch. Legendary calm versus unjust force. The viral street confrontation. Social media users flooded comment sections with admiration and amazement, often using emojis of applause, fire, and fists raised in solidarity. The world was not just entertained, it was inspired. Millions reflected on their own interactions with authority, with strangers, and with moments of potential conflict. Chuck's calm, measured response had become a teaching moment for thousands. Back on the street, the local authorities had intervened, speaking privately with Officer Daniels. The cop faced consequences, not in humiliation alone, but through accountability. Internal reviews confirmed that his actions had been unnecessary and aggressive. Yet he walked away having learned a lesson, one that millions had witnessed firsthand. Chuck Norris, meanwhile, remained humble. He never sought credit, never posted on social media, never flaunted the viral footage. To him, the lesson mattered more than the attention. He addressed the crowd one last time. Strength is not about proving yourself. It's about understanding responsibility. Authority is earned, not taken. And respect, True respect is given through integrity, humility, and patience. The crowd applauded once again. Phones captured every moment, and online viewers typed in real time, "Respect." This is a masterclass in handling conflict. We need more people like Chuck Norris in the world. The livestream host shouted into the camera, "If you believe no one should be judged or attacked without cause, type respect in the comments and share this video with everyone you know." Instantly, viewers engaged, creating a massive ripple effect across social media platforms. As the story spread globally, people began sharing their own experiences. Times they were underestimated, times they faced aggression, times they wished they had responded with calm rather than anger. Chuck's example became a reference point, a universal lesson on human dignity, control, and morality. The encounter was dissected in podcasts, news segments, and discussion panels. Analysts and fans alike praised Chuck's approach, a combination of calm, psychological strategy, and moral authority that diffused a potentially violent situation without a single blow. Even Officer Daniels, reflecting privately, admitted later, "I thought I was in control. I didn't realize what real authority and restraint looked like until I faced him. That moment changed how I see my job and my responsibilities." The viral clip eventually inspired other initiatives, workshops on conflict resolution, social media campaigns on respect and restraint, and motivational content emphasizing integrity over intimidation. Chuck Norris had turned a single street encounter into a global teaching moment. The final moment, captured in the video, showed Chuck looking calmly at the camera. Strength is measured by patience, not fists. If you believe in respect, equality, and humility, type respect in the comments, share this story, and subscribe for more inspiring lessons like this one. The world had witnessed something extraordinary. A man faced aggression, disarmed it not with violence, but with composure and authority, and left a lasting impression on millions. The moral was clear. Real power doesn't need to intimidate. It needs to inspire. By the end of the day, the story had traveled across continents, languages, and platforms. Chuck's calm courage and moral authority had not only humbled a reckless officer, but it sparked a movement, proving that one person's integrity can inspire millions. And in every comment, every share, and every view, one word echoed repeatedly: respect.